front of my head. I'm a biofeedback and neurofeedback therapist. In neurofeedback, we learn to train our brain. We learn to strengthen the brain by focused use of the brain. That actually has a lot of benefits for contesting. I work with kids that have ADD, ADHD. There's a lot of theories about ADD and ADHD, and they're all wrong. The bottom line is the front of the brain is sound asleep. It seems weird that just settle a person down. You give them speed, which is what Ritalin is. But if you're falling asleep in the middle of the day and we give you speed, you wake up. Not good for kids to have speed. A kid with ADHD is going to be always doing this stuff because he's falling asleep and it wakes him up. Parents say, I don't understand how my kid can play video games all day and then he can't focus and study because those video games are wearing his brain out. Too much stimulus, too fast, explosions and colors and death, and the kid's exhausted. I've measured brain waves of a couple of young people before and after video games. Very interesting. So what I do, instead of speed, because I'm not licensed to prescribe drugs, we do neurofeedback. Neurofeedback is focused concentration with a video game. And you can see here, maybe you can't, but there's a bunch of color bars, and they're representing the different brainwave frequencies. What I want to do before I get started is I want to burn a barrel for you, just to show what can be done with your brain. Let's see if I can get this thing over here. There we go. There's a barrel. I'm going to see if I can burn that barrel by just focusing. I was trying too hard on that second one. That's neurofeedback. Simple video game. Not 10,000 things going on all at once. Just one little thing. I did an experiment many years ago wearing this headset in the middle of a NAQP radio contest. There are some videos on YouTube. Look up my call sign, WQ6X, and you'll see this screen, as a matter of fact, in some of those videos. I wanted to know what my brain was doing when I was running a contest. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Ron Fitch. I have my Alameda Tongue Twisters badge on because I'm the president of the Tongue Twisters group. We meet here every Tuesday night. We have speech contests throughout the year. We just had a speech contest last night. I got to participate. I didn't get to win. Oh well. 2 years ago I took it to the top and then got knocked out by a man named James Jeffley, who when he speaks, he just takes everybody out. So this room is my home in a sense. But ham radio, outside of my bio and neurofeedback work, is my life. The first speech I ever gave at Toastmasters was called an icebreaker. If you give your first speech, we call it an icebreaker. And you tell us something about you. And I told the story of how ham radio saved my life. Because as a kid, I didn't have time to steal cars and do drugs and get drunk. I did all that later. But in high school, I'm in the ham shack. You want to know where I am? You know where I am. I'm in the ham shack. So amazingly enough, too, in Toastmasters, we do a thing called table topics, where you come on up. This is what I did last night. You come on up, and on that moment, the topics master gives you the topic, and you have 1 to 2 minutes to say something real. The first time I ever did a table topics, I was sitting way in the back of the room, and Jim, who was running the show that night, he pointed to me and he says, "Ron, you've been hiding out for the last month. Come on up and tell us about your favorite piece of orange clothing." Well, I don't have any orange clothing. And then I remembered, yes, I do. As a matter of fact, this t-shirt right here, CQP 2013. I'm going to tell you a little bit about CQP 2013 because it rescued us from a disaster, CQP 2012. And that was my table topic. I told them that, and I won first prize that night. And I realized, hey, I can actually do this. So in preparation for this event, I put together a little web page. I have a website, WQ6X.info. It's a .info website. And it's got all kinds of stuff on it. But if you go to WQ6X.info /contests, you'll get this page. This page has all kinds of links to a lot of things that are contest related, and I'm going to show you most of those things today. Oh yeah, I go forward. Whoops, wrong way. There we go. So, what is radio sport? We hear that term a lot. There's a book that's come out in the last 2 years. I recommend you read it. He has a weird writing style, but I got used to it. And he tells the story of a couple of years ago, the IARU HF Championship. Every 4 years, we do an Olympic-style contest. In July is the IARU HF Championship, and every 4 years, in some part of the world, the best of the best operators come on in, and somebody sets them up a tent. They all get the same kind of antenna. They bring their own radios. One year, a group from Germany, their radio got busted as they were coming into the country. So somebody somehow found them a radio. And then they're all in a geographical area, pretty close to each other, but far enough away that they stay out of each other's way. Last time they did that in, was it 16? Yeah, I guess it was 16. It's 18 and 14, so 2014. They did the event in the Boston area, out in the hills, and there was 50 stations. And the Americans, it's like everything, it's the Americans and the Russians that are always the top contenders. This coming Olympics, as I call it, they're going to have a special category for teenagers. Yes, we've got to get the young people involved. We call contesting. The Europeans call it radio sport. I kind of like that term. First, I didn't like it. Sport, I'm not whacking balls or running or whatever. And then I got to thinking, what do we do at field day? We're busting our butt to get antennas up in the air. I usually go up on the mountain, Mount Abel, north of Los Angeles, with W6S W team. But all the kids are growing up and moving away and joining the military and getting married, and we're losing our operators. There, we put up antennas the day before. We're lugging batteries around, up and down the hill. The air at 8,300 feet, very thin. So there's a lot of sport, a lot of physicalness in that, as it turns out. Sitting in the chair isn't just sitting in the chair. There's a lot of sport involved in that. Typical contests are CW, sideband, and RTTY, although other modes are also used in contests. I'm an HF person pretty much exclusively. I use VHF for walkie-talkies and talking to people a little bit, but I'm an HF person. Some contest events allow multi-modes, what are known as the state QSO parties. They allow multi-mode. You can either run CW, you can run sideband, or you can run mixed. I sometimes run mixed. I'll tell you about how to decide what to do with that. My license history, when I was young, I wanted to be an Ace TV repairman. I got a job working for Ned Schaff in Livermore. I grew up in Livermore. Found out that that was a very non-glamorous job. Around that time, I got my first license. I was WN6LKB, and I became president in my sophomore year of the Amateur Radio Club at Livermore High School. Nobody else wanted to do it, so I got stuck with it. I just found a picture. If you go to my Facebook page, you can just look me up by WQ6X. I found a picture in the 1970 yearbook of our club, and I put it up on my page, and it's amazing. Every one of the people in that picture is on Facebook. So they all loved that I did it. 9 months later, I became WA6LKB by getting a general license, and by the time I was 17, I busted my butt and passed the extra class, back when you had to take a 20-word-a-minute code test. I'm a CW person, so that's not a problem. I wanted a better call sign. Looney Cooney Booney just doesn't quite do it. Japanese call me Rundun Kentucky Boston. Rundun. So I just didn't like that. And they had the 2x1 call signs coming out in 1983, and I filled out the form, and they gave me Kilowatt X-Ray 6 Hotel. In those days, KX6 was Marshall Islands. So I learned a little trick. In a 10-meter contest, there was a real KX6 station on 10 meters, and I went up about 10 kc from him and started calling CQ contest. And they would think I was another Marshall Islands. And then I would say 5.9 Cal. 5.9 what? 5.9 Cal, sorry. Well, somebody else now has that call because I decided I like X's in the call sign, but I hate 4 dits on the end of a call sign. It's real easy. People called me KX6S and KX6I and KX65. And, so I requested and got WQ6X in the year 2000. And that is now who I am, forever and ever. Let me tell you something about call signs. Are you aware of 1x1 call signs? You've probably heard them. If you haven't, you just haven't been listening. 1x1 call signs, here's a whole bunch that I have reserved over the years. They're usually for special events. You can request a call sign for, I think, up to like 2 weeks consecutive. Normally, for certain contest events, I'll request the call sign from Thursday to the following Monday. Gives me time to set up equipment and test it using that call sign. 1x1callsigns.org is where you go, and you request it. They know me so well that they don't even send me an email anymore saying I've been approved. The only email I get is if I get rejected, and I got rejected once, which is weird. And just recently, I decided to register K6T Kilowatt 6 Tango because I anticipate I will be operating from Tuolumne County again this year. So K6T, T stands for Tuolumne. Some of my favorite contests. November Sweepstakes. It's in November. Maybe that's why they call it November Sweepstakes. Wow. Amazing how I figure this stuff out. California QSO Party. Anybody know when that is?
First weekend of October.
Thank you. That's right. Field Day, of course. Last full weekend in June. Most of the time I have been with W6SW. Last year, because it was closer, I took a drive to my friend's cabin in Tuolumne, Twain Harte to be exact. We ran W6K, Whiskey 6 Kilowatt. I'm going to have a story to tell you about Whiskey 6 Kilowatt. CQWPX contest where you get multipliers for every unique prefix. Calls like W6 and N6 and K6, boring. WQ6X, that's a good call sign for WPX. I often go down to Southern California at NX6T. Why they don't use NX6T for WPX, I couldn't figure that out. They wanted to always use my call. Then I got a box from the QSL Bureau with like 10 million Japanese cards in it. Now I understand why he didn't want to use NX6T, because then he was going to get all those cards. We have done a number of operations of the Japanese International DX contest. We've got some plaques. We won for that. Last year we got knocked out of first place by an unscrupulous call sign, which I won't mention. You can look it up if you really want to know. And this year, those people were on the air again, and I said to Dennis, we're in trouble. And then, when the contest was over with, we found out that they didn't run as a multi-op, they ran separately as two single ops. And it looks like NX6T will take first place again for the JIDX contest world. Really, Roundup was my exposure to teletype. 2014, I did a de-expedition I'm going to share with you in just a moment. You have your choice of running an Elecraft K3 or an FT1000 MP suit. Well, no offense to anybody who likes the K3, but I'm bored with the K3. I don't like the ergonomics. I don't like the way it's laid out, and you got to double and triple click on buttons and remember where you are. Too complicated. So I said, put up the 1000 MP. I loved it so much, I now own a 1000 MP. Most people traded in their 1000 MPs for a K3. I went the other way around. The 1000 MP has dual receive on the same band. That's very important for some contest tricks I'm going to share with you. For this expedition, I ran all bands, 160 through 10, CW and sideband. We did enough RIDI for the contest, so I didn't want any more RIDI. That was the period of time 3 years ago when there were massive snowstorms all over the east. Oh, it was horrible. And I would be running pile-ups, talking to people on sideband in particular, and they'd be telling me how cold it was. I'm tired of hearing how cold you are. But I've always remembered, there was a guy in Wisconsin, and he said to me, it's minus 40 degrees here. And I said, are you ready for this? And I looked up at the thermometer and I said, it's 82 degrees here. Do you realize that there is a net difference of minus 120 degrees between your QTH and mine? And he said, that's just wrong. That's just completely wrong.
Of course.
My friends got the bedroom, and they had a fold-out couch for me. 2 nights of that, boring. Then I remembered I'm staring at a hammock out on the patio. So for the rest of the trip there, I slept in the hammock at night. It was warm. I didn't care. I wrote a lot of blog entries. Later I'll talk about my contest blog, WQ6X.blogspot.com. I'll show it to you later. And I wrote entries about this expedition, and I wrote a number of entries about, for example, how to work a DX station. I'd never been a rare DX station before, and I get these pile-ups. People can't follow directions. And it's tough on CW. I would say, the station with the 9 in it, and I get some Italian, IK3. No, 9s only, 9 only. JA8, 9 only, 9 only. I would get so frustrated I'd finally say screw it, and I'd switch to another band. And there were people who were cheering the fact that they scared me off. I couldn't believe it. Don't you have other things better to do with your life? I learned a lot running pile-ups. You don't appreciate what the guy on the other end is going through until you're there. Whew. What an experience. Now, California QSO party, I think it's the best state QSO party. The idea of CQP is that we activate all the California counties. We only have 58 counties. There are some tiny states that have like 150 counties in one tiny state. No wonder why they can never get all their counties activated in their QSO parties. We always have all 58 counties activated. You can run as a single op or a multi-op. You can run mobile as a rover. People will drive through from county to county. If you work out the exact route, you can swing up and down parts of the state and touch county after county. Some people park on county lines. In the 7QP contest, the Four Corners area, some people will park a mobile right there and they hand out 4 counties all at once. It's pretty amazing. I joined up with W6ML, Whiskey 6, Mexico, London, or Mammoth Lakes, which is where we operated from. W6KC formed the Mammoth Lakes Radio Club, and he's the only member. But it qualifies as a club somehow, and he got that call sign. He put together a multi for 4 years. He was switching careers, got into IT management, and as a class project, he had to learn how to set up wired LANs. He has a condo in Mammoth Lakes, so he wire LANed his entire condo for these contests. Nowadays, we do wireless. He has a Yagi antenna hanging from a tree at field day, and we can now wireless our laptops together and run in 1mm, and we can see what everybody else is doing. It's a lot of fun to do it that way. This is some of the events. You can see me, kind of. You can see me when I had a mustache. Oh, wow. This page is on my website, WQ6X.info/CQP. We had a goal. In 2001, Jim, W6KC, put together a multi, which one of these? It would have been this group right here. It was 4 of us. Jim had a goal. He wanted us to take the all-time high score for an expedition setup. Expedition setup is where you bring in the antennas and the radio equipment. We hoist wire beams in the air, and my famous HAK array for multi-bands. And we were going to take the all-time high score, and it looked doable. So we set up Saturday morning, 9 a.m. CQP starts, and we were off and running. And we led the field through the entire contest. At midnight, 12:30, when I shut the last radio down for the night, we were so far ahead. You know, it's almost like the tortoise and the hare. You got to be careful there. So we get up in the morning, we fire up the operation again about 9 o'clock, and things are kind of going all right. And then all of a sudden, I didn't hear anybody. What's going on? So I put the radio on standby, wandered upstairs. Hey, Jim, what's going on? How are you doing? Our bands are kind of dead. Did we have a solar flare or something? No solar flares. Well, what's going on? Maybe our antennas blew down last night. Hey, Ron, you're on a break. Go out and see if our antennas are up. So I went outside and I'm looking around. No, every antenna's up. What's going on? Jim often likes to pop a brewski at 11 in the morning, only for contests, turn on a football game, and run 15-meter CW for a contest. So he popped his brewski, turned on the TV, and found out his football game was preempted by dear old George Bush decided we're going to bomb Afghanistan. And everybody turned off their radio to go watch about bombing Afghanistan. So we took first place, but we didn't get the all-time high score. And now, it's 2 levels beyond that. We don't stand a chance, so we don't do it anymore. Whoops. So he decided to go back solo. I did solo for a few years, and on a by pure chance, I ran into N6GEO, my old buddy from high school. We got to talking. We hadn't been together in a long time. We decided to start doing contests. So his daughter had this tent trailer and his vehicle. We towed this thing up to Modoc County, the southwest, right on the corner, but out in the middle of nowhere, dirt roads to get there. And it's so out in the middle of nowhere that GPS doesn't even completely get you there. They took us a route up the road that actually goes right by here, but over here, way over here, there's a pile of rocks in the road. So we ran, it's getting dark, and we run this vehicle towing this trailer down and pile of rocks, can't get there from here. Somehow we backed the thing out and eventually got to this location. Just that we showed up was not bad. But for the next year, we took his boat out on the Sacramento River and took first place for Sacramento County as K6S. George decided we needed to go back to Modoc, so we did. The infamous CQP 2012, the antenna that never quite made it. The guy wire snapped and crashed. Nevertheless, we did get a first place, but a lot of heartbreak that particular contest. Oh, and the, can we see that? You can't see that. Yeah, you can see this. This RV was lent to us for free. If it's free, look out. That RV started breaking down within 90 minutes of when we left Antioch area. We were repairing that thing on the way up and on the way back. What a joke. So we decided to go back and do it right this time. This is the antenna that crashed. Look at that now. We had a bunch of other antennas. We took another first place. So we redeemed ourselves. We did a couple of other operations together in 14. We ended up having to operate out of Contra Costa County. We couldn't make it up to Twain Harte for various reasons. We ended up setting a county record for Contra Costa County. Who would have figured that? George lived in a what do you call it, a HOA restricted housing complex, but he had a military mast crank up that we would set up Friday evening, crank this thing up to about 28 feet, run our contests, crank it down at the end of Sunday. Antenna? What antenna? Never had anybody call us out. Last year, he booked a vacation with his wife to Florida for CQP, so I took over his cabin. I ran as W6K from Twain Harte. And if you go to the California QSL party page, they put my QSL card on their page. They did that of one of our other operations several years ago. I don't know why, you could have picked someone better than me. This is the other Modoc team. These guys come down from Bend, Oregon every year. There's an old ranger station that isn't used anymore, and they set up at the ranger station. And they have a huge barbecue, and they got their own cooks, and it's amazing. My next favorite, or my most favorite contest is November Sweepstakes. First held in 1934. Most people don't know that sweepstakes is modeled after the radiogram. The header, every radiogram we would send has a header. And that header basically has a precedent, a call, a check, and a section. It's the way we do it in sweepstakes. But normally it's a call sign. It is a letter saying what kind of message it is. The check is how many words in the message, the location that it's coming from, and the year. What's the year? The check is, no, that check is the year, excuse me. So for practice in sending radiograms, sweepstakes was invented. In sweepstakes, you're only allowed to work a station once in the entire contest. Other contests, you can work a station once on each band, or once on each mode. We now have 83 sections. A few years ago, they split Ontario up into 4 sections. And if you get all sections, it's known as a sweep. A long, long time ago, I was in a sweepstakes, and a Northwest Territories station came on. Turned out he was the only one from Northwest Territories. About 9 hours into the contest, his wife went into labor, so he shut the radio down, and that was the end for him. So if you didn't work him in those first 9 hours, you didn't get a sweep. A lot of people were real bummed by that.
Are they still married?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question, actually. Let me tell you about a few notable sweepstakes that I've done. 2 come to mind. I used to activate Santa Barbara section because Santa Barbara section used to be quote-unquote rare. I'd operate out of a friend's multi-million-dollar house he was building in Ojai, and I'd set up in one of the bedrooms, and I'm down in the valley, unfortunately, so that didn't help. And up on the top of the hill was N6VR with his kilowatts and his monster antennas, and I had a little TS-50 with no front end filter, so he would take me out. The irony of that is that the FT1000MP that I own was one of the 2 FT1000MPs that were up on that hill that would take me out every contest. Great radio, I'm real glad I bought it. Now, eventually I had to move on, but I wanted to keep Santa Barbara going. So I put out an ad, I think it was on Craigslist, asking for a location that I could run a radio contest. And this lady wrote me back and said I could do it from her place, and I said I'd give her $100 to be there for the weekend. So I set up, and I put a little vertical up outside. Contest started at 1 o'clock, and I'm having some trouble getting ready to get started, and I decided at 1:30 I'm going to start. At 1:25, a knock on the door. "What's this thing outside?" It's pointing to my vertical. "Well, it's vertical. Well, we can't have structures up." I said, "I'm doing an emergency preparedness exercise. This is public service." For sweepstakes. Anymore I don't, but I used to. I used to be W6K, whiskey 6 kilowatt. A little parenthesis, something you need to know about me. Does anybody remember Flip Wilson and Geraldine?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Go, Geraldine.
Well, Geraldine showed up one day at a job I worked at. It was so tense. To this day, we don't know who started it, my friend Bill or me, but we started Geraldining people and doing Geraldine imitations. Then it would make people laugh and it would take the stress out.
Yeah.
Well, as a therapist, you know, that could be pretty nutty, right? One of my favorite movies is Magic with Anthony Hopkins and the ventriloquist dummy and the dividing line closes between the 2. You should see it. It's a classic movie, came out in 1976. And on the DVD, in the special features, they interviewed the ventriloquist who trained Anthony Hopkins how to do it a little bit. And the ventriloquist made an interesting point. He said, every ventriloquist I've ever known has had one moment where in the middle of the act, the dummy said something that they had never rehearsed before. If you see the movie, you'll see it. At one point, he's having an argument with the dummy, and he slams him in the case, and he hears, "I'll tell." What will you tell? One night, in the middle of the act, I'll scream. And I won't tell you what he'll scream because it'll ruin the story. Well, that happened to me one night. I was in the middle of sweepstakes on 75-meter phone, calling CQ sweepstakes, whiskey 6 kilowatt. And then all of a sudden somebody comes on, hey, stop bootlegging my call sign. You're bootlegging my what the? I keep calling, you're still bootlegging my call sign. So I finally stopped and I said, who the hell are you? I'm W6KW. Oh, you're W6 kilowatt whiskey. I'm whiskey 6 kilowatt. No, you're bootlegging my call sign. And he wouldn't give it up. And out of nowhere, Geraldine showed up and said, you drive that son of a bitch, you leave him alone. That was the end of him. Never heard from him again. I don't know. I don't know how that happened. I didn't plan on that happening. Well, one of my favorite contests is Field Day. By the way, Field Day is not a contest, it's an operating event, technically. Although we still say CQ contest. Field Day is often people's first exposure to radio. It encourages emergency preparedness. Gave me an excuse to go camping. You can learn a lot from Field Day by sitting next to an experienced operator, or even worse, just have them put you in the chair and you do it. And at first you go, what am I going to say? And then all of a sudden we can't get you away from the microphone. I'm a heavy CW op, so I usually at W6SW, we have a wired beam just for CW. We have a wired beam for sideband on 20. And I run 20 CW most of the time. A few years ago I did 900 contacts on 20 CW, as well as wandering the other stations and putting in about 300 to 400 on sideband, just because I got bored. This is some pictures from W6SW. Fraser Mountain Park Road is the exit on Highway 5. It's on the Grapevine. And there's always little signs showing you how to get there. We're up at 8,300 feet on Campo Alto, the campground. There's no running water up there. You gotta pack in and pack out, as they say. These are some rather old pictures, but we've been doing this one for, I've been with W6SW for going on 30 years. It shows my age. Now, finding a contest. Some people want a contest, but they don't know what to do. WA7B&M contest calendar. Google that. It actually has a weird URL, so I wasn't going to give it to you. You can just find it real easy. Beginning of the year, I go to the contest calendar and I mark off all the contests that might be possible for me to do throughout the year. And then I work out going in that direction. So far, I've done 26 little contest gigs since the first of the year. A lot of little QSO parties and contests where I'll make 5 contacts. But I send a log in anyway. And I'll tell you about that in a moment. ARRL and CQ magazines have contest sections. Every 2 weeks, if you're an ARRL member, you'll get the contest update email. I guess maybe you have to ask for it, but it's free. There are specific web pages for each contest. Facebook has numerous discussion forums and amateur radio pages where you can find out about what's going on. We tend to run contest logging software. 30 years ago, I ran an all-Asian DX contest from the Data General Building in Manhattan Beach, Southern California, because we had a MV10,000 computer, and I wrote a little logging program in Extended Basic. It could dupe check and fill in some of the missing data. It was something to do, and I had a 5-story building, so I put an AJK flap top on the roof and did amazingly well. But nowadays, there's all kinds of software out there. These are the 3 main ones. In1MM Plus is free. WinTest has a free and a registered version. WriteLog has a registered version. I've never used WriteLog. A lot of people swear by it. There are other programs. There's a special program for CQP you can get off of their website. These programs produce a file in Cabrillo format. It's a standard format that's used nowadays. So you can email the logs to the contest committee, or you can paste it, cut and paste it onto their web pages. You can run everything by function keys. Literally, F1 calls CQ, F2 sends out the data to the station, F3 says thank you, QRZ, F4 is your call sign, F5 is the other guy's call sign, and then a few other keys that I set up for different things. These logging programs allow you to produce statistics about each contest. If you go to my contest blog, you'll see that I have pictures of stats from all the contests I've done. In each contest, I'll have it make me a graph, a bar graph, or whatever, to show me and everybody else how I've done. After a contest, submit your log either by email or by the contest sponsor's website. Report your score to 3830scores.com. Why 3830? Does anybody know? Long time ago, up to about 10-15 years ago, after a contest, started after sweepstakes. Sweepstakes would end at 7 o'clock on Sunday evening. And at 7:15 or so, we would congregate on 3830 and tell people how things went. It was one night on 3830 that I told the W6 kilowatt story. And 3 people said, "Hey, WQ6X, we heard that guy. He was really hassling you." Listening to me rather than wanting to contest, because it was pretty funny. But now, we have a website. You can go there, and you can submit your contest score. And you can then see who else submitted a score. A lot of people don't post their scores here. So recently I thought I had a win, and I was in second place, I think it was. Oh yeah, great, I'll get a second place. And on 4 days later, there's 5 people ahead of me now. You're not required to post here, but I like to do it. It's just, kind of bragging rights, I guess. They have a soapbox section, and every contest log has a soapbox section. Soapbox is where you get to say what happened. And like I said earlier, the contest organizers often read those. For Riddy Roundup 2014, the guy read it and excerpted from my soapbox and put it into the magazine. Typical contest categories. Single up, I'll come back to this in a moment. Multi-single, which means you can have one transmitted signal on the air at a time. Doesn't mean you can only have one transmitter. It just means you can only have one signal transmitting at even at the moment. At NX6T in Fallbrook, we have 3 radios. Sometimes multi-single, we're running actually all 3 radios with a weird lockout system and I'll tap you on the shoulder, wait, I got one, and then I'll make the contact, and all right, you can go. Multi-2, you can have 2 transmitters active at the same time. So then you can have often 3 going, but 2 are transmitting at the same time. Multi, you can have as many transmitters as you want, based on the contest rules. Some contests don't allow multi. Many contests have club station entries, and many contests have an entry for first-time contest people. Assisted or unassisted means you're using the internet. You're using spotting nets to find out where stations are. There's a thing called the skimmer that works for Riddy and CW. A skimmer is computer software that can read the Morse code and read the Baudot code and can figure out where everybody is and put you in the band map. Well, a lot of people said that's not fair. So they finally decided to solve that problem. They'll make it assisted and unassisted. Assisted means you have access to the skimmers and the websites that tell you where everybody is. Unassisted says you don't. Now it's up to your honesty, but guess what? They've got computer software now that can analyze the log and can often tell when a person who said he was unassisted really was assisted. And they'll disqualify you for that. Happened last year, in fact, in Europe. Seems to be more cheaters in Europe Then here. Some contest aids. I already mentioned the contest calendar. dxmaps.com. You can see the different stations that are transmitting. You can see the path from them to wherever they're getting to. On some of my contest blog entries, I've put some pictures showing where WQ6X was spotted. I was spotted in Australia once by a beacon station, but New Zealand. I was spotted by a beacon station, but no other New Zealand stations heard me, so it didn't do me any good that I was spotted. There is a set of beacons, the NCDXF beacons. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. My problem, I love the beacons. My beef is with the people who either don't know or don't care that the beacons exist. The beacon on 20 meters is 14.100. That's in the RTTY section. There's a RTTY contest going on right now, and it's obliterating that beacon. And people who know better, I won't name a call sign, but one of the RTTY contest organizers, he was sitting right on top of .100, and I called him out on that. And he didn't like that I called him out on that. Well, hold it, dude. Those beacons are for everybody. If you're on top of it, then nobody can find out. Doesn't make sense. Monitor the gray line. That hour before and after sunrise and sunset. A lot of wild propagation things happen. In a recent gray line, I had South Africa, or West Africa, call me long path. And I didn't expect that one coming. I thought it was a joke. I asked him to repeat his call sign several times. It was for real. It's another network called the Reverse Beacon Network. Kind of the same as DX Maps. And then there's the Contest University. You know, when I came here this morning, I wasn't sure I was in the right place because I didn't see any ham antennas or ham call plates. Right now, there's a convention going on in Visalia, the DX convention. I'm used to seeing antennas everywhere and call sign plates. I couldn't go there thanks to you guys. I had to be here. But I also had clients this weekend as well.
Ron, on the gray line monitoring, what
Yes.
band is the best at?
Say that again?
What band? An hour before, an hour after?
It's hard to say. 20 meters, 20, 40, and 80 are usually the ones. And you have to, the way to learn gray line is for the next few weeks, turn your radio on before and after sunset and just start listening around. And you're going to start hearing some things that you shouldn't be hearing at that time, and you'll figure it out. It isn't the same every day. Some days there's no gray line. Some days there's, last weekend was the Holy Land contest. We often have a gray line shot right into the Middle East. And last Saturday I heard 2 Israeli stations on, very, very loud, just for 20 minutes. They were there and they were gone, just like that. You never know. This is the beacon network. I wrote some software to track the beacons. MFJ makes a little box that has a bunch of lights on it that's synchronized to the WWV clock. I wrote a software program to do the same thing. I was hoping their box would actually have a receiver in it, but no, it doesn't. What this does, you can see it, there's a lot of X's. There's 4, 5 of the beacons are down right now. This one over in Madeira, CS3B, has been down for 1.5 years. They're running TS50s, and now they're replacing them with ICOM 7200s. What happens is, each beacon goes through a cycle. It makes a transmission on 14.100, and then goes to 18.110, 21. As I was getting ready for the contests, I heard the F beacon, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. I heard the M beacon, da-da, da-da, and the D beacon. Different times they faded in and out. They're part of the Russian military. One of my beefs is that militaries like to use our ham bands. How dare they? We've got the over-the-horizon radar has come back, and it's now parking inside of our ham bands. In the olden days, they used to run it at 13.960, right below 20-meter band. Why? Why do you have to park it there? Give me a break. Why do you have to put a beacon on 7.040? Go just below the 40-meter band in the pirate radio
Are
area.
you saying the woodpecker is back?
Yeah, the woodpecker is back. It's a new kind of woodpecker. Yep,
That's bad news.
yep. And 40 is one of the biggest bands now that they're nailing us on. Preparing for a contest. Check the contest calendar for rules. The B&M, WA7 B&M has a link to the page for a given contest rules. Go to the contest website and look at the results from previous years. How did people do last year? You'll learn a lot from that. Review your own documentation, because I hope you take notes on what you do. That's why I wrote the WQ6X contest blog starting in 2013. I wrote that blog for me, and then it turned out a lot of other people liked reading it. Talk with other contest operators, establish your own goals. Come up with, well, I'd like to do 500 QSOs this weekend, or I'd like to do something different. Monitor the space weather for a week. Actually, go back 1 month, because the sun rotates about every 27 to 28 days. So go back almost exactly 4 weeks. What you saw 4 weeks ago may happen today. Devise a per hour band plan. If you go to my CQP web pages, I publish a band plan of where most likely I will be at any given time of the day in CQP. So you'll know when to look for me in 10, 15, and 20, or 40 or 80. It's just a plan because Mother Nature is going to make it tough for us. Space weather, deal with it. Oh, hello. As you know, we go through a more or less 11-year sunspot cycle.
More or less and more.
Yeah. It's the shortest was 9.5. The longest was about 13 or 14. We came out of one of the longest lulls in the previous cycle. They say we're still 2 years from the bottom. I don't buy that. No, we're in the bottom right now. You don't know you're at the bottom until you come back out of it. So we don't know.
How can be any more bottom than where we are?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And solar flux down to 66 about 3 weeks ago. The SF index basically is a formula used to tell us about sunspot activity. The K index, every 3 hours, measurements are taken and are published by WWV. 18 minutes past the hour is the space weather on WWV. 45 minutes past the hour on WWVH. WWV uses a computer recorded voice. In Hawaii, they're still picking up the microphone and speaking it by hand. The WWVH station is on Kauai, Barking Sands. That's a missile range. I was there a few years ago. We parked at the edge of the road. One of my web pages has a picture of the sign for WWVH. And as I walked up to the road and I'm taking the picture, a guy came out of his guard shack. Hey, you can't take pictures around here. So we drove away. Now they're giving tours of the place. So evidently they're not too worried about security anymore. The K index tells us about the space weather for 3 hours. The A index is averaged over 24 hours. We want lowered numbers. Right now, A index of 10. That's, according to this, that is an unsettled sun overall, but K index of 4 means that the sun was active, probably belching some stuff out. Notice all the band recommendations were horrible several weeks ago.
Where do you get that actual shot?
A lot of websites, yes, that picture, a lot of websites have this on it. I'm trying to think of the,
QRZ has it.
pardon me?
QRZ.com has
Yes,
it.
QRZ.com has this, exactly. A lot of the space weather sites have that same thing. After a contest, document everything. There's my blog. At NX6T, Dennis used to make videos. He got busy with other things, so I started making some of the videos. You can go to WQ6X and NX6T on YouTube, and you'll see some of our videos. I made a series of videos when I was on St. Croix as WP2/WQ6X. So if you can copy CW, you can listen to me work pileups in Europe. And if you can hear sideband, you'll hear me talk to a lot of people all over. Submit your 3830 score. And be sure your QRZ.com page is up to date with the addresses and things that we need to know about you. Because you never know when someone might want to send you a QSL or send you an award or all kinds of cool things. So as we move into the last part of this, there's some advanced ideas. One of them is called running remote. I'll go into that in a moment. Then there's SO2V, single op 2 VFOs. My FT1000MP has 2 radios in it, 2 receivers. I'm learning the art of SO2V. I'm starting to get it. Not bad. SO2R, single op 2 radios. So people have 2 identical radios run with 1 piece of software. And some people are going SO3R and SO4R. I think they're going to probably check into the local insane hospital probably after that if they go to SO5Rs. So,
Ron, what was SO2V again?
it's single op 2 VFOs. SO2R single op 2 radios. Now, the last few years, I've been running remote. NX6T has a remote setup in Fallbrook. We're up on the mountain, about 900 feet up. We have 3 stations there. 2 of them are remote accessible. There are remote stations now all over the world. If you have money to burn, you can join. I can't remember the name of the site. You can go look it up. That will allow you to become a member for $100, and then you can buy time on some of the biggest stations all over the world. But they're charging you per minute, and I figured it out. It's about $150 a weekend by the time you're done with the normal contests. So, like I said, if you got money to burn, why not? You could run some of the hugest stations remotely and be really cool. ARRL released a book not too long ago on remote operating, not bad. Some radios like the K3 have a special hardware setup. They have a thing called the K30. It is just the front panel of a K3 in a box with enough smarts to tie into the internet, and you can then have your knobs just like you used to on the K3, and you can run a K3 remotely that's tied into it.
How's the latency on this sort of setup?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? You've got to have
That'd be a problem for me.
You got to have a good
Especially on
internet
CW.
connection. Yeah. This year, Fallbrook has just put up a microwave link to a guy on a hill across the way who's got good internet. And now we can microwave to him, and now my response has been pretty good. But it's been tough
But
throughout
I can't
the year.
imagine on CW when you're doing these lightning fast exchanges to have any latency at all.
Yeah.
You get.
With RTTY, the cool thing about it is the data from RTTY comes in and shows up on the screen on the remote station. I may then lose my connection or have it slow down for a minute, but it's still on the screen. When I get my connection back, it's still waiting on the screen for me. On CW, it's gone. And the same thing on sideband. And doing it sideband is tricky, remote, but I did it recently. We use at NX6T a software setup with the program called LogMeIn Hamachi. Anybody know what Hamachi is? It's yellowtail sushi.
I thought it was a fish, yeah.
Yeah. So one contest last year, I made a to-go order of hamachi from the local sushi place and took it with me. And I was running log me in hamachi while I was eating hamachi. That gets us onto a network. Once you have to have somebody that's had a network. N6KI has a network for us. Then we use a program called RC4 that runs the radio. Some people like IP sound for the sound. I find that IP sound program is too funky for me. I prefer the audio on the radio. But some people like the IP sound. And then to look at the screen, I use a program called VNC Viewer, and I use that. Here's RC4. This kind of looks like an Elecraft K3. It's got some similarities. It's got the amber screen and it's got the buttons. And this works pretty well. In fact, I just took this picture this morning. This is where the beacon was. I was listening to a beacon. 7039.42 when you tune it in right. And here I can change the filters, I can change the gain. If I scroll down, I can change the power level. I can do this program has 4 voice memories like the K3 radio does, so you can record your voice for the contest, and then you just press some function keys. And then once in a while, if somebody doesn't get it and I have to yell and scream at them, then I don't have a function key for that, so I'll speak it. Tell him what an idiot he is or whatever. Here's VNC Viewer. This is before I started the SPDX Witty contest this morning. You can see it's about, is that 12 o'clock or 13 o'clock Zulu? It is 13 o'clock Zulu, 6 in the morning. I just set up the N1MM software. Here's the amplifier control panel. I'm running an ACOM 2000 amplifier, running about 700 watts, so the amplifier runs pretty cool. And this is your typical RTTY setup. I have another log set up for later today for the Nebraska QSO party. So I'll go play and look for Nebraska stations when I get bored with RTTY. And you'll notice that I have the RC4 radio in the corner of my screen. So I can tune the radio, or I can type into the software. Single lot 2 VFOs, SO2V, requires a dual receive radio like the K3, the 1000 MP, the old oldie but goodie Pro 3, or the Orion 2. They can all support it. Single lot 2 VFOs requires a lot of practice. Same with SO2R. My beef with SO2V and SO2R is that a lot of stations are basically wasting other people's time because he's got 2 radios going. He's busy on the second radio while he's calling CQ on the first. I call him, I know I'm 20 over 9 and he's not coming back to me. Why? Because he's on the other radio. That's unacceptable to me. If you can't keep both radios going full speed all the time, you shouldn't be doing it. When I'm running SO2V and I get flustered, I shut off radio B and stay with radio 1 until I get my composure back. With 2 radios, I have VFOA in my left ear, so I can call CQ and let people come to me. And I have VFOB in my right ear, and I can tune up and down the band looking for searching and pouncing people to call. And if you time it right, you can do both. But when you time it wrong, you make everybody wait. And I have a big issue. And the people that run SO2R say, well, that's too bad. Well, they're getting theirs because a couple of contest committees have now said you're not allowed to run 2 CQs on the same band. And many contests don't allow you to change bands. So you SO2 radio guys are going to dial it back just a little bit so that the rest of us can have fun too. Here's a single lot 2 VFO setup that I did for sweepstakes. Here's the entry for VFOA. Here's the band map that goes along with VFOA. Here's the VFOB entry and the band map for VFOB. So I'm calling CQ here. People are calling me. I log them. They all end up in the log. I see somebody on the band map because I'm running assistant. I can use the internet. So over here, I'll click on this and it'll set the VFO of Radio B over to that station, and I can give them a quick call while this is going on. And if you do it right, it can be a lot of fun. But if you get out of sync, you got to be sober when you do SO2V because it's real easy to get lost.
No brewskis in the morning.
No brewskis in the morning. You got that right. So,
Weed all right?
reasons for radio sport. Emergency preparedness. People that say they hate contesters, guess what? Emergency preparedness. We handle traffic better than you. Test new equipment configurations. I've done a lot of that through contests. You can learn a lot about propagation. You don't even have to play in the contest. Listen. For a while, I was just putting together a log, an N1MM for a particular contest, and typing in the call signs I was hearing. I wasn't even making contacts. I was just getting used to the software and learning how it all works and learning how to do things faster. And it strengthens the brain and it's fun. Because something I want to point out that's very important. In Toastmasters, see, one of the things that's cool about today is that you gave me some time here. In Toastmasters, they only give me 5 to 7 minutes. Man, that's tough. You know, everything is real short. So you got to make every word count. We have, at every Toastmasters meeting, people take on assigned roles. One of the roles is the counter. And he makes a list of names, and he counts how many ahs and ums and no's and wills and likes. Because those things waste time. And in Toastmasters and contests, we're timed. If we go overtime, whether we know it or not, we're out. I was watching a lady last night, gave a wonderful speech. The red card went out and said she had 30 seconds. She kept on talking. She kept on talking. And I know she went overtime. She doesn't know she went overtime. But when the judges submitted their ballots, they just threw hers away. Didn't count. Well, being efficient is what it's all about. Because little things waste time. How many times have you done a field day? Somebody calls me, W6SW, please copy, blah, blah, blah. You are my number, blah, blah, blah. A lot of wasted words. If I call you, I'll say NX6T, 6A, Los Angeles. That's it. No more. In contests on CW, they often have you send 599 and some other data. I often don't get the other data. So like this weekend in the RIDI contest, we're sending a number of contacts. So I couldn't get the guy's information. I have a function key that says number in our question mark. So he sends me 599 and his number. By the time he got to his number, he faded out. If he had just sent me the number, I would have got it before he faded out. Number again. He sends 599. Again, people keep doing this. No, I only want the data that I ask for. Because with fading, by the time you get around to giving me the stuff I want, you're gone. There was a famous contester by the name of Katashi Nose, KH6IJ. A Japanese man, you should look him up. He was a fun guy. He was a University of Hawaii professor, I believe, and he did consultations for big industry. And what he studied was efficiency. What can you do to make things more efficient? And he made a comment that I've always remembered. It's going to appear in my next blog entry. He said, UCW operators, if you send some code and then put your pencil down, send some code, then pick your pencil up to write into your log, then put your pencil down to send some more code, pick your pencil up to write into the log, put your pencil down. He said, you would be amazed how much time you're spending picking up your pencil and putting it down. And he said, consider this, if you waste 1 second 5 times to make a contact, that's about 5 seconds wasted. And you make 500 contacts in a weekend. What is 5 times 500? You've wasted 2,500 seconds picking up your pencil and putting it down. I forget the exact numbers, but it'll be in my blog, but I ran the numbers, and he was right. A whole hour of time was wasted in the contest weekend picking up your pencil and putting it down. He said, balance your pencil between your thumb and your index finger, and then use your paddle. And after a while, he said it takes practice, but you'll get it.
It's tough for a straight key.
Well, that's a tough one. Yeah.
How about if you learn to write with your left hand?
There you go. That's the smart people. Yeah. Yeah. I said that. I'm saying that in my blog. Learn to write with your left hand, send with your right, or the other way around. I'm a right-handed. I could probably learn how to send with my left hand if I wanted to. So taking it to the next level, I did a brainwave exercise just to show you what can be done. I want to brainwave monitor some well-known contesters. See if we can take them to the next level with neurofeedback. I got an email from K4BAI. He runs the Georgia QSO party a couple of weeks ago. And I told him that I've been doing this, and he said, I want to know more about it because I want to be one of your first. So he's got to come out here, or I got to fly me to Georgia. I got some custom antenna designs I'm working on. I'm thinking about another DXpedition. And I like to write software, so I've been playing around with some software pieces that's going to come out sometime this year, hopefully. The WQ6X toy box, as I'm calling it. It'll sell for like 25 bucks. And it's got a few things in it, like the browser clock. Looks like the little MFJ clock I bought from MFJ. The gray line browser. This will let you track the gray line. You can see kind of here to here. There is for working the JIDX contest, you can track all the prefixtures. I made one of these for CQP in the 58 counties, and I made one for the IARU championship in all their zones. And then, of course, the beacon tracker, which I showed you earlier, and a voice keyer. This will drop down for another 6 voices, so you can play different things. I like to be cute. Not too long ago in a contest, I recorded. Does anybody know what the easy button is? It's on my Facebook page. I have a link to it. It's a big red button. It was put out by Office Depot, and you press it and it goes, that was easy. We used to have a lot of commercials about the easy button. He just used the easy button. Well, we had an easy button in Fallbrook, and I got smart one day and I digitized it into one of the voice keyer memories of the K3 radio. So instead of saying, thank you, QRZ, press F3 and it goes, that was easy. Who's next? So I can record one of the that was easy voices in my voice keyer. And that is basically it. Any questions? Yes.
You are, at least in my experience, a totally unique ham.
Yes.
Because what you're doing is what I would call, and it's a little bit of a mixed metaphor, domestic DXpeditions.
Yes.
And I don't know anybody else who does that. But after hearing your presentation, I can see a lot of compelling reasons for doing exactly what you're doing. Why do you think you're the only one in the world doing
Well,
that?
actually, I'm not. In January, QST, a guy wrote in a letter to the editor about doing portable operations. And I wrote them and said, this guy's got a great idea. Let me tell you what I do. And they published my letter in this issue of QST. So if you go to letters to the editor, you'll see my response to his, to saying basically, a great idea. I'm glad to hear someone else is thinking like me. See, I had no choice. Right now, I don't have a home QTH where I can set up a radio. I had to solve that problem. I was doing research work in North Hollywood in 2009, had no place to go for contests, so I put out an email on a reflector that said, I'm looking for somebody who needs an operator for sweepstakes. And N6KI, Dennis wrote me back and said, yeah, we could use another operator here down at NX6T. So I joined them, and from 2010 on, I've been making the drive to Fallbrook, again, because I have no other place to go. I now operate out of Concord, my friend W7AYT. I convinced him to get a license. He got his father's call sign. He has license plates of his father's call up on the wall. So he got his extra. He can barely turn the radio on, but he got his extra. And he has a vertical there, and I put up a little Cobra inverted V when I operate there. He allows me to operate there. The first weekend of May, I'm going to operate. The first weekend of May is 5 contests. 7 QP QSO party, the New England QSO party, the Indiana QSO party, the Delaware QSO party, and the ARI Italian DX contest. We many years tried to operate all those in the same weekend. I did that last year. Sent in a log for the 7 QP contest. Figured I might get a mention for California or whatever. And a few months later, I got a package in the mail with a little plaque. I won the non-W7 first place just for showing up. So what I'm learning from this is always send in a log.
Yes.
You never know who's going to get disqualified or who lied about their score. That's what got NX6T last year, was that at the last minute, the guys up here at N6RO found out that they basically found a way to report themselves as a multi-op, and they beat us. They were really running single op, I think. This year they were running single op, so we got the first place. So just because you see a score on 3830scores.com, I saw one the other day. The score was completely ridiculous. I don't know. I'm surprised the webpage even allowed them to post it with those numbers. It was all wrong. Now that score is completely gone, so they got rid of it. But that's the way it's done. Find new places to operate from. You can put counties on the map, on the radio. You can put sections on the radio. You had a question.
This morning, I think you did some 40-meter work, right?
Yes.
So at your QTH that probably doesn't have a 40-meter antenna, what are you using? Are you remote or?
Well, I was remoting this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, this morning, the last several weekends actually, I've been remoting into NX6T. Everybody, the NX6T is in Visalia, so I got the radio to myself. No one's going to bother me. When I operate W7AYT, he's got a vertical, and I put up a Cobra inverted V, just enough to do the job. And what goes up can go down real fast. I leave a rope hanging from the tree in Concord, so I can just hoist it right back up again. Field day taught me to do that, and it occurred to me. Because I wanted to activate sections that were rare, so I started doing Santa Barbara. And then what else is rare? I'd like to see somebody do an expedition to northern New York. It's a very rare section in the sweepstakes. Used to be West Virginia, was very rare. Now not so rare. South Carolina, every other contest, there's 10,000 million South Carolina stations. Along comes sweepstakes. If I can hear 2, I'm lucky. And if one of or both of those contacts has an error in it, meaning gets taken out of the log, I just lost South Carolina. When you send your log in, that's your proposed score. Then the log checking robots, the LCRs, go through your logs. At the contest I did last weekend, they said if the stations that you work is not in at least 5 other logs, it will be you will lose it from your logs. You might make a legitimate contact, and then the guy's radio burned out or whatever, and he couldn't get on the air anymore. I lose that because 4 other people didn't have it in their log. I don't like that idea, and I'm going to send in a complaint about that. But that's the way it goes. That's my view. Any other questions?
What are you doing on field day this year?
That's been asked. I'm not sure. I understand you guys have something here.
You do. Come and see us if you don't have any other plans.
We should talk because I'm a good operator to have.
Bring your own key. We always use a straight key on CW, and you probably are a paddle man, so.
I'm a paddle man, or I use the software. N1MM sends code very nicely.
If you come, bring whatever it takes for you to.
Yeah.
Let us use your remote.
I could bring my 1000 MP if you have a AC outlet or a generator to produce AC.
Yeah, we probably would.
I have one as well. It is a good radio.
I love
Great.
it.
Yeah. I haven't used it in years. I mean, I bought it a long time ago, then my housing situation changed.
Yeah.
And I thought about selling it, and I thought, no, I'm going to just keep it because I like it. It's a good radio.
At W6ML was the first time I used that MP, and I went, wow.
Yeah.
See, I like knobs to twiddle.
I don't like these menus.
Yeah, this menu crap. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
No. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. This
Well,
is
thank you.
really
Anybody that would like to